Hey everyone, it's Jonathan, and welcome back to Every Version Ever. Today, Jenna and I are talking about a movie that I've wanted to talk about probably since the beginning of my channel, a version of Alice in Wonderland from Argentina. However, there's not a ton of information available about this one, in English anyway, so it was never one that became a huge priority. But since I started doing this series more regularly with Jenna, I figured we needed to make time for it, and we definitely did. In fact, we made a lot of time for it, more time than it takes to actually watch the movie. This is not one of the best versions of Alice in Wonderland out there. In fact, for a good portion of it, it's kind of boring. But, as Jenna will explain, it has kind of a fascinating backstory, and a lot of interesting choices, and a lot of missed opportunities. So we ended up having a lot more to say about this one than we figured. So this is weirdly one that I've wanted to do for a while. Like, I found this one back in, well, probably the first year that I was doing Wonderland Wednesday. But I never got to it, and it's just been kind of one that's been in the back of my mind, like, yeah, I should get to the Argentinian one of these days. So we're finally doing it,
Yeah,
and it's interesting.
yeah.
I probably like I didn't figure I would love this one because like part of it is I can't understand what they're saying because like I don't speak Spanish. I mean, I somehow passed 2 semesters of college Spanish. I have no idea how I passed.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I could pick out words here and there. So I wasn't like totally blind, but I was like 80% blind.
For the most part, from what I understand, most of the dialogue is pretty faithful.
I
There's only a
wondered.
few things where it's like, what the heck is this? This isn't from the book.
Yeah, there were times when I could pick out a word here and there and I was like, okay, they're saying this, so they're probably saying this and like their cadence is like as the flow of how the sentences would be going in the book. So I
Mhm.
think this is accurate, but I still wasn't 100% sure because there was some odd changes.
Yeah, and some of it can be kind of explained by the context of this film. I think I'm just going to go right off the bat and say I don't really care for the adaptation of this Alice, to be honest. I find the story behind it a lot more interesting, but that also in itself, it is a little bit confusing, because at least for me, I'm not a very good researcher in foreign languages. I'm much better when it's English. I've dabbled in looking at Alice's in other languages, but I just find it, I'm not very good with other languages, so I just find it harder.
Hmm.
So that said, most of my quote unquote research for this, I want to give credit to Irene Martinez, Estudios Carolines, Carrie, oh my gosh, Carolinos, dot blogspot.com. And she's a Spanish Carolian, oh my gosh, sorry. One of those nights. Um, who actually talks a lot about Alice film, the adaptations. Her articles are in Spanish, but they're still pretty interesting to read with Google Translate on. So she did some research into this film, which first led me into why it was kind of interesting in the first place. So this film is the only feature film by the Italian Argentine artist Edward Pla, and he's actually not a film director. He's more of a visual artist.
I think that seems, I can see that
Yeah.
looking back at it now. That makes sense.
Yeah, when you watch this film, it's hard to describe. Like the film language is very off. The storytelling is hard to follow unless you know Alice in Wonderland.
That's the only reason that I felt like I could follow this movie because I already knew the story. It's
Yeah,
just when they deviated, then I felt lost.
yeah,
But I feel like I enjoyed watching this more for vibes than anything else
yeah.
because like the costumes were very mixed. Like some were okay, some were weird.
Uh,
The special effects were odd.
yeah.
I don't know, but like there was something about the vibe of it. Like it was very 70s. Like the whole opening thing, like very 70s flute music over the illustrations. It
Yeah,
just
I
felt
mean,
like something that I
yeah.
probably would have seen on PBS when I was a little kid or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's very strong visuals, you could
Hmm.
say.
Even
Because
when it's not done well, the visuals are still strong because they're odd. So, like, it's interesting to watch, even when it's weird.
so I have mixed opinions on some of the visuals I'll get into later. But the visuals are very strong, especially in the first portion of the film.
Hmm.
And it makes a lot of sense because I think he actually did direct music videos. Um,
there was at least
yeah,
one part where it felt like it was turning into a music video.
yeah. I mean, well, even at the end, it ends in a music video.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, kinda.
which the song is apparently composed for this film as well. I forget who the composer is. Naughty of me, very naughty. Um, I think I can figure it out in a moment. But anyway, point is, he's not a film director, so that's kind of why it's not. I'm going to be a little mean but real here. It's not a very good film.
I'm not gonna disagree.
Yeah, but you can argue it may not really be meant to be a film in the sense of being a film. He probably meant it more as an experience, and I can't say it's not an experience. So I think he succeeded in that regard, at least.
Yeah.
Whether you could say you like the experience or not is up to your own personal preferences.
I mean, I will say I've watched it twice now, and I didn't, even the second time, aside from the parts where there was a lot of talking that I didn't understand, I didn't feel bored. So it has that
Oh,
going for it.
I get extremely bored during. I
There are times when I got bored, but
yeah.
like if they just started talking and there's nothing else happening, because I don't speak Spanish, I got bored. But like when they're doing something while they're talking, then it's interesting to watch.
I don't know what it is for me, because I've watched so many foreign language Alices where I don't have any subtitles. If anything, I feel like people who limit their appreciation for foreign Alices because there's no subtitles, I feel like they're limited by that. Like Nel Mondo di Alice, I would say is probably one of my favorite foreign Alices. In fact, I would say it's probably like on my top 10 list of Alices in general. And I
Uh-huh.
don't have any subtitles for that one, but I love it. But this
I
one,
don't mind watching without subtitles.
yeah,
Like,
I don't mind not having subtitles. The problem with this one though is that I don't think it's not edited very well, especially all the shots when they're out in the like natural settings. It's just so boring even visually sometimes that I
yeah,
my attention wanders and I can't focus on the film. I have to like force myself back into it. So it's not a favorite of mine for those reasons. But I do have some praises for some scenes. I do think the beginning's really strong. If the whole film was like basically the rabbit hole sequence
that was my
to
favorite
the Pool of
part.
Tears, if the whole film was like that, I would be feeling it. I'm not a big psychedelic person, but I'd be like, this is the psychedelic Alice everybody wanted.
That's kind of what I was thinking when I was
Yeah.
watching it.
Everyone says 1966 is the psychedelic, like the Jonathan Miller version is the psychedelic Alice, and I'm like, it's not really though.
That feels
Um,
more like an indie film mixed
That's
with a
more of an
PBS special.
artistic film. Yeah, it's more like your favorite director's favorite film. The kind of it's not really psychedelic. At least I feel like it's not it's more pretentious, I feel like, than psychedelic.
In a
Um
way, yes. I
yeah.
enjoy watching that one because it's so odd, but it does have a very pretentious vibe to it.
Oh, I enjoy the visuals, and I can enjoy I can appreciate, not enjoy. I appreciate the mood they're going for, what they're going for. Whereas this one, I'm kind of like, a real psychedelic Alice would be what the beginning of this film is. And
Hmm.
if they had carried that vibe all the way through, this would be a fantastic experience and I would like it. But after the caucus race, then it just drops and it never picks it back up for me. So this is always a real struggle for me to get through, especially the courtroom scene.
Yeah, I can see that because I will say, like, watching it and then watching it a second time today, I did get bored, more bored the further I got in.
Yeah,
Like the first part is the strongest. It's the most interesting. It has the best vibes.
yeah,
Like it feels very 70s, but I feel like even though there is 70s music throughout, it kind of loses that the further you go on.
it stops being as psychedelic. Yeah,
It becomes more confusing the further in you go.
yeah. And I think, well, part of it is, to be honest, okay, so that's part of why I want to go more into the history of this as well. So, this was made in the 70s of Argentina, which a lot of, I would say, Americans don't really know about Argentinian history. But in the 1970s, they had a military dictatorship, and specifically when this was made, they were going through what they termed as the dictatorship called the Dirty War. with state terrorism. Like people were dying left and right. And to be honest, I don't really feel qualified to really go into the history because I don't really know it. I read very briefly on it, and I don't want to misrepresent what happened or give any wrong facts. But it was a very serious time period. So whenever Pla made this film, he actually originally intended it to be to explain. He felt in Lewis Carroll's original text that he was criticizing Victorian England with Alice in Wonderland. I don't really agree with that he was, but that's how he interpreted the original Alice text.
Hmm.
So in his original idea was to take what Lewis Carroll was doing and transform it into a political commentary about what was happening in Argentina at the time. And he was originally going to call it Alice in the Land of Underdevelopment. Oh, I also should mention he also did a short film before this called Alice's Dreams in 1972, but I wasn't able to find much about it besides that it was only 15 minutes and it was the quote unquote like layout for this film.
Is it available to watch? Because I never found that
I
one.
wasn't able to find it. I can try again because I was just kind of quickly trying to gather information about this in general, but I couldn't find it easily. Let's just say that.
Hmm.
I'll try again, but yeah. So there is actually a short film in connection to this one. We'll have to try to see if we can find it one day. But going back to when he was first trying to make this film, so this is where I credit Irene for finding this information. He had imagery of like Alice in a gas mask, stuff like
Hmm.
that. And police would see what they were doing and stop them and be like, "What are you filming?" And
Hmm.
she'd be like, "Oh, Alice in Wonderland." And they'd be like, "Sure you are." And they would shut him down. So eventually it became more of a faithful Alice adaptation.
Did the original short have this gas mask imagery?
I'm not sure. There are like little thumbnails, but all of them just kind of show Alice in black and white. It doesn't show any gas mask.
That would be really interesting if that exists somewhere.
Yeah, I'll read the part from Irene's post here. Quote, so I started taking Alice with the gas mask to where they burn the garbage, unquote, says Everpla. Quote, and the police came and took us away. What are you doing here? Filming Alice in Wonderland. Oh, really? Don't act smart. And then they took us all away several times, unquote. So, you can imagine at some point they realized, he probably realized he wasn't going to be able to film it the way he wanted.
Mm.
Um, and it turned into he decided just to adapt Alice in Wonderland as more quote unquote faithfully. I do think some of the imagery is still in there because this film was actually filmed after over a large period of time. I saw a date of 1973, in which, considering it was released December 9, 1976, that's quite a long time to film. Their budget was very low. They only filmed on weekends, apparently. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if some of this imagery from this earlier version still made it in. For instance, at some point, the rabbit changes his outfit and it becomes a blue outfit.
Okay, I wondered about that. I was like,
Yeah,
is this still the rabbit? And
it
at one
is.
point I was like, is it the rabbit or Jack, or is it both the rabbit and Jack?
Well, no, it's not the Jack. It is meant to be the rabbit. He's wearing blue and white with suns on his cheeks by his eyes.
Oh, that's what that was supposed to be.
Yeah, he's supposed to represent the Argentina flag.
I kind of wondered because like some of the things that I was seeing was like, is that like flag imagery? There was a lot of weird makeup and costume choices that I didn't understand.
Yeah,
And I had figured it was just down to the culture. Like there was some reference that I wasn't understanding.
yeah. Which is also, I feel like I'm also missing some cultural references, and I feel like anything that was left over from when it was a political allegory is pretty much going to be lost on us. But I feel like the rabbit being Argentinian flag colors probably was left over from that.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, and there's a couple other things which, if we talk more when we talk more in detail about like points of the film, I could also bring in stuff Irene has said about what happens in the film that's not in the book. Oh yeah, I also found Edgar Pla's website. He's died, but I assume somebody set this up who's associated with this estate. And this is what it says in the description of Alice in Wonderland. He films the full-length color film Alice Wonderland, surreal and lyrical, in a 75-minute avant-garde film with music by Charlie Garcia and Renaissance melodies. It is an exuberant interpretation of the work of the English writer. It is well known that Lewis Carroll, surrounded by the White Rabbit and the Hatter, was criticizing Victorian society. Eduardo Plata associates his criticism with the turbulent times in Argentina in the mid-1970s. He rightly chooses Monica von Rotscharsch, I don't know how to say that, I'm sorry, as the heroine of the film, and although it takes 2.5 years to finish it, okay, so it wasn't 1973. I'm not sure where I saw that. That might have been when he originally got the idea. I don't know. Anyway, it takes 2.5 years to finish it, filming half in 16 millimeters and the other half in 35 millimeters. Though I associated the rabbit obsessed with time with an executive, unquote, the author tells us. I think they mean director. And the evil queen with the military man at the time. I made her ridiculous and funny. I also associated the 12 characters with the sign of the zodiac and for in a musical note. For example, doe is red. It has the same vibe, unquote. I'm not sure what he means by this, but
Well, there's zodiac signs in the courtroom scene.
well, I did associate that, but I'm not sure what he means by doe having the color red. But I guess like there is a lot of the music is very important in this Alice, but I'm not too familiar with like connecting it with the visuals, I guess. Maybe when doe the note was heard in the music, would see the color red. I'm not sure.
I
Um,
don't know. It's been too
yeah.
long since I took any sort of music lessons. I don't remember specifically what note sounds like.
I feel like most people wouldn't notice that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Anyway, the film was a huge success in Italy, which is like, what? It was? Okay. Um, but some critics in Argentina consider it unsuitable for children. Edward Pla takes advantage of this opportunity to expand his universe, and he creates a theatrical version of Alice in Wonderland using the costumes from his feature film, which he did. After this, I think 1977, he did a theater version, also in Buenos Aires, and it was, according to his own website, which I'm sure it's not biased at all, it was popular, supposedly. And yeah, I think that's all. Like, oh yeah, one more thing actually. The film has actually been restored by the San Martin Cultural Center, and I just only now found a clip of the restoration on YouTube. But as far as I could, they had some screenings relatively recently. But as far as I could see, like a year ago or so, I couldn't find the full restored version of the film anywhere.
I wonder, because this one, the copy I watched was pretty fuzzy to the point where I have questions as to what I was seeing sometimes.
Yeah, it's not a good film transfer to begin with, because like you could see the flicker, and then it was a TV broadcast. You could see the watermark in the corner, and
Hmm.
then it was probably recorded on VHS. That's a lot of fuzz, a lot of
Yeah.
noise to come in there.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, our copy of the film has been through a lot. I would enjoy if they could make this restored version more accessible, but we'll have to see if it ever is.
I wonder if the people who did the restoration of this movie would have a copy of the shorter film.
They might.
Like if
Um,
if they had enough interest in it to restore this film, you would think that they would also be interested in the film that came before it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I couldn't find anything about like if the film is anywhere currently, if it was ever screened afterwards. But I find a lot of these cultural centers don't release this stuff. It's more that so they could screen it.
Yeah.
I guess getting into the meat of the movie. To be honest, I think the costumes and like makeup suck. But they had a low budget, so it's fine.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there was any costumes that I actually liked. Like Alice's dress looked good, but I also wondered, did she have more than one dress? Because at one point I thought she changed into a different dress and then it was back to the other one.
So this film has a lot of consistent like continuity errors. But maybe it's art and it's on purpose. I don't know. Like,
That's what I wondered.
yeah, but it seems to happen with no rhyme or reason, so I feel like it is just continuity errors born from having to film this over such an extended period of time.
Hmm.
Like sometimes she's barefoot, sometimes she's wearing boots, sometimes she has stockings. She always has this, I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it, the stupid sleeves. Um, but sometimes she has like over sleeves or something, and sometimes it seems like she doesn't.
The
Sometimes she
sleeves are
has
the
that,
biggest thing that I noticed. The sleeves and the shoes, because like sometimes she'd be barefoot and in the dress with like full sleeves,
yeah.
Then she'd also have the sleeves that are like no sleeves I've seen before with little ties like holding them together.
Yeah, I mean, I think she does have the ties no matter what, but like sometimes she has like a sleeve over the ties.
It could have been. Sometimes
Yeah,
it was hard to tell what I was
it was
looking
hard to
at.
tell. And at some point, you just kind of get tired, like looking at her costume and trying to nitpick whether, what's going on with it. Sometimes she's wearing the waistband, the purple waistband. Sometimes she isn't. Like the waistband disappears at some point. I honestly wondered if it was introduced later. And the only thing I like about her costume is that she has a hat, but I don't
Well,
like
the
the
hat
hat
doesn't stick
itself.
around.
Yeah, I don't like the hat itself, and it disappears. But I like the idea of Alice with the hat, and nobody does it except for the anime. They had Alice in a hat.
Oh, that's right. I've never seen the anime, but I've seen clips.
Ironically, I still haven't really watched the anime. I've only watched like a couple episodes.
Yeah, it
Um,
seems like I would like to watch it eventually, but it's such a big time commitment that it is
it
not
really
high on
is.
my priorities list.
Yeah. To be honest, I probably would enjoy watching that more than this, but that's over a longer period of time.
Yeah,
Um, so I end up watching this over that, you know?
yeah.
So I like the concept of it, Hal is having a hat, but it disappears. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't really like any of the other costumes or makeup. I will say I'll give them credit that their creatures are very fantastical looking.
True, but like, what were they?
I don't know if any of them were actually even meant to be real life things. Like the person with his head in a globe, like a clear globe shape, I don't think he was meant to be anything.
Yeah, it was so bizarre. Like, I
Yeah,
like the idea, but also I still want to know what it was.
honestly, I really feel like they just put things together to see what they can make. I don't think, I think some of these quote unquote creatures aren't meant to be anything.
The only thing that I could really like come close to saying it might be this was I think one of them was supposed to be a lobster,
Mm,
and one of them looked like it was supposed to be a moth, but it only had one wing.
mm.
So I'm still not 100% sure. Like the one that I think, like based on what was happening, I think the one character was supposed to be the mouse, but it looked nothing like a mouse.
Oh, the one she talks to?
Yeah,
It is supposed to be the mouse, but yeah, he looks nothing like a mouse. The only way you would know he's a mouse is, well, I guess either speaking Spanish, but the only other way, if he didn't speak Spanish, was knowing the Alice story,
yeah.
that the one Alice talks to the most is the mouse.
That's the only reason that I figured it was a mouse is because like I thought I picked out some dialogue, but also even if I hadn't picked out a bit of the dialogue, she's talking to one of the characters in the Pool of Tears. What other character could it be if they're following the book?
Mm. Oh, interesting tidbit. The escalator and the elevator scene and basically the lead up to the rabbit hole were apparently the only ones of the kind in Argentina at the time.
Hmm.
And it's like, wow, okay. Well, that would be very rabbit hole-ish to do in that
Yeah,
context.
let's go back to the beginning because
Oh, yeah.
we
Sorry.
moved a little too far in because I wanted
Uh,
to say before we get to the rabbit hole, were they in a marsh?
um, I guess to be honest, I almost always forget about the very beginning. It's a very kind of like abrupt beginning. And yeah, I guess they are.
Because I'm so used to like they're sitting like by the bank of a river, but like
Yeah.
this looked really swampy. It didn't look for like a really nice place to sit with nice dresses.
Yeah, my guess is that they wanted Wonderland to look a bit more natural compared to wherever Alice came from.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I guess they chose it's not a very pretty area, just a marsh.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know why. It seems like if you're gonna do that, you might as well have her near whatever shopping center they ended up in.
Yeah, that would have made more sense. Have them sitting on
Yeah,
a park bench or something.
yeah. Have her sister sitting at the bus stop
I
or
was just gonna
something.
say bus stop would make sense in a big shopping center like this.
Yeah. Or I don't know. Did they have buses? I would assume.
I would assume
Or
so.
I'm sure they have a bench on a street.
Yeah.
I will say another thing about this Alice that I think had really good potential was kind of this like urban vibe the beginning opens up with.
Yeah, I thought that was going to end up being how the whole movie was. And I thought, oh, this is an interesting twist. But then she ended up in a weird forest. So it was only a twist for the beginning.
Yeah, there's a German immersive theater experience, Alice, of like Alice in a Mall land kind of thing. And I was, to be honest, when I first heard about that, I was expecting something a bit more like this. And I feel like Alice in a Mall could actually be a really interesting concept that hasn't really been fully explored.
I feel like I've seen something like that, but it was like I was watching part of it and I was like this, like it says it's supposed to be Alice, but it didn't feel at all like Alice in Wonderland, but it took place in a mall and it was just confusing, so I stopped watching it and I didn't write it down.
Was that the one where a bunch of people are following actors around in a mall?
It might have been.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. It's
Okay.
German. I believe it's German. I might be wrong.
It was odd, whatever it was. It didn't feel enough
Yeah,
like Alice that I decided not to bother with it.
I think they do some interesting things, but because it's a quote unquote theater experience, it just feels more awkward than anything. Um,
Mm,
and it's like this would be way more interesting if it was an actual film with like editing and music, you know,
yeah.
and not with people awkwardly in the background because they're trying to watch. But anyway, I feel like this Alice like kind of gives it kind of like teases this concept of kind of Alice in an urban setting, but it's actually meant to be a juxtaposition to when she goes to the more natural Wonderland. Because then we see her in the forest, we see her by a real river, or is it a lake? I guess it's more of a lake. I don't know. We see her on a beach. Though at the same time, when she first goes to Wonderland, it's like a white nothingness.
I loved when she first got to Wonderland. I thought that was
I
so cool.
I actually really loved it too, which is why and but then they end up going more natural. And I guess I have seen people mention more of oh, me it's supposed to be the juxtaposition of modern day Argentina to the natural wonder of Wonderland. And I'm just like, I don't know, it just rings kind of hollow. Because it feels confused because it does start in a white nothingness and then it ends in a white nothingness as well, like in the courtroom. To be
Yeah.
honest, I feel more like maybe they couldn't afford the studio space and they went natural for the other scenes. Oh, besides the Duchess's house, that was interesting actually. I'm like, what was the Duchess like they went to like a castle-ish area, but not like a real castle, like a phony castle-ish. I shouldn't say phony. More modern. I don't know. It kind of reminded me more of like a theme park castle, and the inside looked like a warehouse. And I was like, that's interesting. I like this more than just nature. But anyway, I don't really feel like even the nature scenes, I don't feel like he really uses nature to its advantage when telling the story. I feel like Jonathan Miller did it better.
Most of the nature scenes were just kind of long and boring.
Yeah, Jonathan Miller did it better. Like I feel like Jonathan Miller, when he actually used nature in his Alice, it's like to its complement. But this just feels like I don't know, it's just boring. It just feels like college students walking around, because they can't afford to rent a set. I don't know.
It does kind of feel like something a college student would make.
It does. Which, I mean, it was his only film, so I guess that does kind of make sense because he doesn't really have like the filmmaking experience of making a film, not a music video or
Well,
short film.
I also wondered, like you were talking about him getting stopped by the police when he's trying to film. And like, I don't know how laws work in Argentina, but normally when you're trying to do something like that, you have to like get permits.
Yeah,
And like, if you're in public, you usually would try and like shut down a street so you don't disrupt people and they don't disrupt your filming.
yeah.
So maybe it was somebody who just is so completely unexperienced that they don't know that you need to do that in order to get it done.
I mean, that's possible, as well. I'm not educated enough to say whether that, permits were needed and whether he like failed to get them and whether the police shut him down because of the permits or because of political allegory or maybe both. No idea. All I know is, I feel like the most interesting sets of the movie are the sets that aren't nature.
Yeah.
I was actually my favorite part was white nothingness of the Hall of Doors and the Pool of
I
Tears
think
and
it was mine too. I thought it was such
yeah,
an interesting visual thing. Like, well, first of all, taking the elevator down to Wonderland,
yeah.
I thought that was kind of inspired. I really liked that.
I really like that too.
And then having it turn into a clock, it
Yeah.
was just interesting.
I do love the clock imagery of the rabbit hole and how she's in the clock, beautifully done. I actually really, really like that part. I also like the Hall of Doors, that it's just this tiny, like almost like dollhouse door all by itself in the
Hmm.
vast of nothingness. But when she looks through it, then you see her walking in nature, which actually I don't think they should have had her walk a clip of her walking in nature. I think it should have been maybe the rabbit walking in nature or some or just a picture like a video clip of a garden or something.
Her watching herself is an interesting idea, but I feel like it needed to have a reason for it to be herself because, like, it never went anywhere. Like, she saw herself, and then you later see her walking through that same place. But, like, why did she see herself? I didn't really understand that.
I do think it's supposed to be that she's imagining herself, but when you're watching it, it's a little jarring because I don't feel like it's using film language correctly. And with the way this film, with how like avant-garde this film was, I remember the first time watching this, I initially wasn't sure if she had teleported to the garden. And I was like, oh, she's there already. And then it's back in the hall door. Oh, she's not there? And like,
Yeah, I
so
kind of felt
it's
the same way.
maybe if there was a voiceover of her being like, how I long to be there. Because as far as I remember, there's not anything of her saying that in Spanish. It's just she's not saying anything.
It was all quiet.
Yeah, I feel like if you could establish that it's her imagining it, like through voiceover or dialogue or something, then it would be great. But because there isn't, it is a little confusing and it takes you a little while to realize, oh, it's meant to be she's imagining herself in the garden. Okay.
What would have been cool is if it wasn't an imagination, and like later when she is actually walking through there, if you saw in the background just a door with her giant eye looking through.
Yeah,
That would have been cool. I would have liked that.
yeah. There are some like really interesting ideas and concepts, but like they fall through sometimes because they might not be carried all the way through.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. And then I really liked how they did the Pool of Tears too, just like the whiteness with like the blue on I don't know, like the blue tints or water effects on the
Hmm.
camera.
And like the echoey dripping noise as it filled up
Yeah, I'm not sure how to describe it, but I thought that was really well done. But and then it ends.
or turns into a music video.
Yeah, and after what I think is meant to be a caucus race, and then it just kind of like goes downhill for me.
Yeah.
I really wish the whole film was like the very first few minutes. It would be amazing.
Yeah.
Just like focus on visuals. Um, so this is an interesting bit that I got perspective from Irene's article, which is the mouse gives her an egg. It tells her she'll hear beautiful music if she holds it up to her ear, but it also teleports her to the forest, and then the egg becomes Humpty Dumpty. To be
Okay.
honest, to be honest, when I first saw this, I didn't even comprehend that it was an egg, to be honest. I was,
Well, I don't know what I thought, but I did wonder if maybe it was supposed to be turning into Humpty Dumpty, but I didn't like they didn't make it clear. I couldn't tell if she found Humpty Dumpty or if it was what she had been given, but none of it really made a whole lot of sense, so I just kind of went with it. And also this was where it started getting boring too, so
yeah, I feel like, okay, so I have a few opinions about this part with Humpty Dumpty, which is why is Humpty Dumpty here? Because this is Alice Wonderland, not through the Looking Glass, and I hear some people like Jenna, you say it doesn't matter if Looking Glass gets mixed in with Wonderland all the time, and I'm like, yeah, but this is the only Looking Glass part in the whole film.
that is true because I kept waiting for like Tweedledum and Tweedledee to show up.
Yeah. So why is he here?
I kind of like that that's the part that they chose because like you always
Really?
like if people are mixing them up, everybody always goes for Tweedledum and Tweedledee out of Through the Looking Glass. But I kind of like that some guy just really liked Humpty Dumpty for whatever reason. It was like, I want that guy in my movie.
I don't know. I really don't like Humpty Dumpty. So
Well, I mean,
I
I
guess
don't
that's
really like the character. I just like the choice.
uh, it might be that I just my dislike of Humpty Dumpty is enough to kind of I don't hate Humpty Dumpty, but I don't really like him either, and I don't really understand the choice. I part of me does kind of wonder if this was a choice left over for political reasons,
Oh, it
or
might be.
maybe there's a cultural thing we're not understanding here. But I feel like out of all the scenes in Looking Glass, like Humpty Dumpty's a really boring one.
I mean, yeah, but I just think it's weird that Humpty Dumpty is in Looking Glass at all. So I think it's interesting when somebody decides to put him in a movie because Humpty Dumpty is usually one of the least used characters. I think that's more why I liked him being here because hardly any version, like a lot of Looking Glass versions don't even really use him that much.
Yeah,
He's just kind of a forgotten character.
yeah. I don't like this scene. That's all I can really say.
I mean, it's
Um,
boring and
yeah.
weird. And then the whole scene where he's like in the boat and like, why is he in the boat? And like, what's that about? And why are they singing? And why does he fall in the water? And then they reverse the footage to get him back in the boat.
Oh yeah, I might as well mention a lot of special effects in this Alice. Okay, so it starts off strong with like the rabbit hole clock and the pool of tears, like I don't know how to describe effect on the camera. But then like the rest of the special effects in the film are really, really like low budget and like pretty much silent film era special effects.
Yeah.
Like reversing footage and pausing the film so someone disappears and then resuming the filming. And it's like, whoa. But not done as nicely, weirdly. You wouldn't think it would be that hard to do.
Yeah.
Um, but the editing, to be honest, because I'm like the editing on silent films is slightly better.
Uh-huh.
It's weird because I'm not saying these effects are necessarily bad. If anything, if Alice was kind of trying to be artistic, it was like, oh, I'm purposely using silent film effects because I'm paying homage to that era, or I'm saying something with the story using these effects. I'd be like, go you, that's great. I love that. But
Hmm.
this one, I'm kind of like, okay. That's it. I don't know. I get the impression it's more because they just can't afford anything else.
I mean, that's the impression I got.
Yeah. But it doesn't really feel clever either. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm really unfair with that opinion.
Part of it is because I couldn't understand what they were saying for most of it. So it's hard for me to judge whether or not they were actually trying to say something meaningful. Because
Mm,
to me, I'm just basing this purely on visuals. Like, it's fine, not great, except for the beginning. I loved the beginning. But then after that, it did get a bit boring. It was interesting to watch, and I wasn't bored through the entire thing. I watched, like I said, I watched it twice, and I didn't feel fully bored the entire time.
yeah.
Just when there was a lot of talking, I would get bored.
Yeah. Though even the talking, apparently, they really parse down so essentially they're just doing the dialogue from the books.
I think that's why I didn't fully get bored because I was listening to see if I could pick out anything. But if I had just been watching this just to watch a movie, I would have been really bored.
I don't know, I'm really bored while watching this film. Regardless, I feel bad, but I do. Um, but apparently it's relatively faithful for the most part. I think a big part of it is like it feels like they're just recite like it the editing just kind of like lets them recite it like theater.
Hmm.
I feel like it doesn't really like utilize the medium of film as much as it should. And it doesn't a lot of these scenes I think like this visuals.
I think that's why they were boring.
Yeah, like I think the strongest part that happened in the Humpty Dumpty scene, for instance, was that I do remember like a pan and zoom shot in between the branches onto Humpty Dumpty and Alice, and I was like, that was nice, good for you. And that was it. The rest of it was kind of just straight on with them in the tree talking and
Hmm.
then him in the boat.
And then when you move on to the White Rabbit, it's just them walking and talking. And that was the part where I think I was probably the most bored, except for when I was trying to figure out what on earth he was doing. Like, is he waving sparklers around? What's going on here?
Yeah, he has a sparkler. So, the context for that scene, I already explained why his outfit has changed, but there's new dialogue in this scene. So Alice, according to Irene, Alice asks what happened to his ears and watch, and he responds that they bothered him, so he got rid of them.
Well, at least they addressed it because I was like, what? Like, the first time I watched it, I did not get that that was supposed to be the White Rabbit. I was like, who
Yeah,
is this guy? And then later on, he showed up again. I was like, wait a minute, was that the White Rabbit back then?
yeah.
And then this time I was wondering, wait, maybe it was the Jack. So I didn't know.
No, it is him. And he says he's dressed for the parade, which also explains the scene later where we see them kind of like parading with
There
the
was the
cards.
cards, and I was wondering what that was about. So I guess it probably
Yeah.
does make more sense than I was giving it credit for.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if there's some political allegory with the parade and with him being dressed as the Argentina flag. If that was meant to be anything, I'm not sure. But yeah, that is one of the few like original pieces of dialogue in this film.
That scene in particular was one where it didn't feel like Alice in Wonderland because even when I was trying to pick out words, nothing jumped out at me as, oh, I think they're reciting this line or this poem or whatever. Like nothing stood out to me from that scene. I had no idea what was going on.
The only thing that stood out to me was the sparklers, to be honest.
Oh, yeah,
And that he changed outfits, of
yeah.
course.
Visually, it stood out to me as like, what's going on? But like just trying to pick out dialogue, I did not have any idea.
And then to be honest, my notes become kind of sparse throughout the rest of the scenes because it is a lot of repeating. It is a lot of the dialogue and non-interesting visuals.
Well, I thought, I mean, it's interesting in the fact that it's cheap and odd. Like, especially the next scene is the caterpillar, and I thought it was kind of hilarious. He looked like it was a guy wearing a hoodie and a sleeping bag. I just kind of laughed at the
Yeah.
caterpillar. And then when he changes into the butterfly, it kind of looks like a wobbly merman flying through the sky.
Mhm. Mhm.
It was not very good.
Yeah. But yeah, I have to note that butterfly, they changed to butterfly, which to me, this is a little bit interesting because of adaptation history, in the sense of sometimes adaptations inspire other adaptations. And I was wondering if they were inspired by the Disney caterpillar turning into a butterfly. But yeah, I'm not sure if that was originally meant to be a political allegory or anything, or if they just, if that's what they thought does happen to the caterpillar, or if that's what they decided to be inspired by to do. But just an interesting footnote. I don't have anything else to say about the caterpillar. Do you?
The only other note that I had was that he must have talked about the mushroom because it looked like she went up and broke some of it off before she goes on. But I don't think that ever comes back as important.
Yeah, I don't think she basically only uses the mushroom to go to the Duchess's house, and it's dropped.
Mm. But yeah, after the caterpillar, you go to the Duchess. And it's been a little bit since I've read the book, but did they flip the fish and the frog around? Because I thought the frog was supposed to be the footman. Yeah, it was a fish messenger, a frog footman. So
Yeah,
they've switched them around for whatever reason.
yeah. I don't know why. To be honest, the thing noticed the most about this scene was like the sets, because they were more interesting than the nature we had seen previously.
Yeah, that's true. And now I'm wondering with you talking about them not really having much of a budget, is this a set or is this like somebody's house that they just either discovered out in the woods or maybe borrowed for a day?
Oh, I to be clear, when I say set, I don't think they built this.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah,
imagine so. It seems too ornate. I don't know.
yeah. I don't. I am kind of curious what this location is.
Yeah,
And I think the exterior is different than the interior, but I don't know which either. Well, I don't know what the exterior is. I think the interior is a warehouse or something.
it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, which I'm here for. If you want to make Alice all, if somebody wants to make Alice all in a warehouse, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
I'm like, that would intrigue me. But anyway. It's fine though. It's actually pretty short compared to, I feel like, some of the other scenes.
Yes, this one was the
Yeah.
quickest scene. I thought, like, for as long as they took with, like, Humpty Dumpty or the walk in the woods with the rabbit, this one just was here and gone really quick. And this is the one where I would have wanted more. Because, like, you never really get a good look at the baby. I think they used a real pig, but you never get a good look at it.
They used a real pig, but it starts as a pig. It never changes.
I wondered, because it was like,
Yeah.
it seemed like it was squealing for most of it, but also the scene was so short that I wasn't sure if there was any dialogue referencing it changing or not.
No, I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe they do say it, but like the film itself, they don't actually show the baby changing,
Hmm.
which is funny because that's something they could have used like silent film era tricks to do.
Yeah.
Just have it a baby and it's replaced by a pig. Voila. But they didn't do that. And you would think that wouldn't be that expensive to do either. I'm sure somebody on this crew has connection to a baby somehow. You just have to take it from its parents. Um, you don't even have to pay it. And I'm just kidding.
But you should at least ask permission.
Well, if you want to be boring about it, yeah. Um, no, but really, like somebody connected to this probably knew a baby in some way. Um, or a small child. No one's gonna be that picky. I
Or a
mean, Billy
doll.
Barty was a little person in the 1933 Alice. There's things they could have done. Heck, I'll take a doll. I'll
Yeah.
take a doll. Okay, they had a pig. Good for them. I wish they had taken a bit more initiative with this scene and actually had a transformation. Because what's the point of doing the Duchess if you don't have a pig transformation? What?
Yeah, I don't know. The whole scene was so short that it felt kind of pointless. It was like they felt like they needed the scene, so they did it, but they got it over with as quick as possible.
It feels like they did this scene just to introduce the Cheshire Cat, and it's like, this is the year 1976, my friend. You don't need the Duchess to introduce the Cheshire Cat. Disney already introduced that you don't need the Duchess to do the Cheshire Cat.
Hmm.
So I don't understand the point of this scene, to be honest. Part of me almost kind of wonders if it was meant. A lot of me wonders if these scenes were meant to be longer, but for whatever reason, they thought that this isn't working, or we don't have enough time to do all that we want in these areas before we have to move on, because they could only film on weekends,
Yeah.
which sounds like very limited amount of time. So I don't know. In some ways, it's weird. Okay, some scenes go on for way too long, and then other scenes are just done. And ironically, it's these scenes that are done so quickly where maybe it could have drawn me back in,
Yeah.
but I'm not really getting the opportunity to be drawn back in. It just feels like, oh, okay, we're somewhere else. Which, going into the Cheshire Cat, I really don't like the Cheshire Cat, to be honest.
Me neither. There are worse Cheshire Cats, but there are so many more better ones than this one. What was up with the mask? Like that was the dumbest choice. Just paint his face.
It feels cartoonish. I feel like this is something that might have worked okay in a political allegory Alice, but because it's not a directly political allegory Alice, it's still somewhat a faithful adaptation. It just kind of, I don't know, rings empty. I don't get anything from it. I actually dislike this Cheshire Cat a lot.
I don't get why the mask is the nose and the mouth and nothing else. Like if
Yeah.
you're gonna do a mask, do the whole face. Why is it just the mouth and nose? It was a bizarre choice.
Yeah, I don't know. I just really don't like the Cheshire Cat. I'm actually struggling to think of other Cheshire Cats I would hate more. I'm sure if I try really hard, I'll think of it some, but like right now, I really don't like this Cheshire Cat.
I have one in my head that I dislike more, but I don't remember which version it is. It was a
Well,
guy
okay.
in a skin tight suit.
So, you know how many Cheshire Cats that is?
I mean, there are several.
How many that could describe? Um,
Well, there was one in particular that I can see in my head that I really didn't like, and he's worse than this one, but
okay,
I
all
don't
right,
remember
fair.
which one.
Yeah.
Also, the weird was it 1931? The one where there's it all disappears except for the head, which is a mask, and it's laying on the tree branch like the cat was decapitated.
Yeah,
That one was, I didn't like that one either.
I prefer that one over this, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe I do too, actually.
Yeah.
Just because it's bizarre. And this one was weird in a bad way. That one was bizarre in a what on earth kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, this was interesting. I think this film's biggest crime is honestly, I kind of part of me kind of wonders if it didn't start off so strong, would I find the rest of this so boring?
Maybe, yeah.
I always get disappointed by how strong this one starts and then it tapers off. So maybe I'm just harsh on it because I get a taste of something better and then it doesn't follow through.
Yeah.
Speaking of short scenes, my God, that Mad Tea Party, it's so short.
Yeah, you're there. There's a couple lines that I could tell they were trying to do the book because they moved down, like they did the move down scene, and
Yeah.
then the Dormouse is reciting some M words, and then she leaves.
Honestly, the only thing I remember, I barely remember that scene because it's so quick. The only thing I remember is thinking, why is the dormouse just a girl in pigtails with her face painted?
I thought that was the
That's the
March
only.
Hare. I
Oh, is
thought the
that the March?
Dormouse was the one in the nightcap.
Oh no, you're right. You're right. Sorry, the March hare. Oh yeah, the pig. I guess the pigtails are meant to be ears.
That's why I thought that was the hare.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I didn't get why they put so little effort into it, but it was probably a budget thing.
Yeah, but to be honest, that was like I feel like, you know what? I'm gonna say it. I think that's the Tea Party scene in this is the biggest crime of them all.
It's probably the part with the most missed potential.
It really is. Like there's so many things you could do at a Tea Party scene. If you switch locations because you can't manage to film it all in one go, I would actually think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, if anything, lean into it harder. Like you already have costume inconsistencies. Just lean into Wonderland being a dream. Be more looking glass with that tilt of like things suddenly changing in the narrative of the book. And just lean into that hard if you're actually going to do something like this.
That would be really interesting if they did that.
Yeah, like just be like, yeah, this is actually because we couldn't film it all in one go. We couldn't film the same place. We had to do this and that. Somebody's costume ripped. The actual reasons, but narratively, it's because it's a dream, and maybe we'll do things on purpose because it's a dream too. You know, I think that would be really, really cool. But I think the Tea Party is the biggest in this film because there's so much missed potential. It's everyone's favorite scene for a reason,
Yeah.
because there's so much you could do with it. Like I suggested before, play into being inconsistent and just to let the actors kind of have fun, like weird fun with this role,
Yeah.
with these roles. And two, it's just, I don't know, they didn't lean into it. It's just a high buy and she's gone. It just really makes me upset.
What did you think of the Hatter? Like I know he didn't do much, but like looks
I
wise.
honestly, I don't even have an impression of him. Like, I just remember, I literally only remember a hat.
When I saw him, I had to look up to see when the musician Slash became a thing. It's like, is this supposed to be Slash? He plays in Guns N' Roses. Like, I'm not super familiar with him, but I guess he would have been like a kid around this time, so it couldn't have been him. But I was like, this looks like if Slash were a flamenco dancer.
Oh, okay. I honestly had no opinions of him at all.
He
He's
didn't do
barely
much.
there.
I was just going based on looks alone.
Uh,
Yeah, the whole scene is too quick.
it really is. I don't even know why they bothered.
Probably out of obligation. It's like, well, it's Alice in Wonderland. We have to do the tea party.
Part of me does wonder if they meant to do something with it and something, I don't know, just got off track or
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. It's an odd choice. Why do it if you're not going? Why even bother? I've seen a crazy worse Alice than this that I think had a better tea party than they did, and that Alice was nuts. I don't even know if you should do that one at all, but it's like if they could do it. This could do it. They also had no budget. Almost kind of mad at them. It's just It honestly makes me a little bit angry how wasted the tea party scene is. Sorry, a little bit of a tangent to an earlier point. Because now I'm rewatching the tea party scene and just being like, God, Alice's costume. I wish I don't hate Alice being in white, and it's okay enough when she's out in nature or whatever. I guess it makes her stand out. But I don't understand why they have her in white in the big nothingness scenes because like it blends in too much with the background. I feel like it would look more visually interesting and pop more if she was wearing a color. I don't know, maybe they wanted her to blend in.
Well, like you said, they didn't seem to follow a lot of like film language rules. They probably just didn't think of that.
Yeah,
They probably were like, well, our Alice wears a white dress, so she's going to stay in the white dress.
yeah, I guess so. Well, okay, looking at the Mad Hatter again, he has an interesting shirt. That's all I think. Like, he's not very mad. I
Mad
guess
Hatter's
I might
mad
as well,
enough.
yeah, I guess I might as well talk about the acting in general. I don't really think this is good acting.
I don't want to say because like I feel like I'm not a good judge of acting when I cannot understand what they're saying. Like if it was in English, I could tell better, but like because I don't speak the language, I don't know if they're delivering natural sounding dialogue.
All right, I'll say it more like this. Okay, verbally, maybe it could be argued that I can't really give a fair assessment of their verbal delivery of the lines because of the language barrier. That hasn't stopped me with other foreign Alice adaptations on feeling like people have done good jobs, but I will give them that. I will say, like, facially, like, with their body language, I don't think they do a very good job.
I mean, yeah, that's probably true because there were some times when I noticed that people kind of looked like they were behaving oddly, but I didn't know if that was a choice. So, I don't know.
It's hard to tell because I will say that they're probably going off the direction that plot was giving them. And he was probably wanting to go for the kind of blank emotionless kind of thing because like it feels like they were trying to go for a more psychedelic vibe.
Mm.
But it just comes off really blank in this. I don't know, maybe if the film direction itself had been stronger throughout the whole thing like maybe if the beginning of the film had been the vibe of the whole rest of the film, that would have been fine, but it wasn't. So I don't think it worked. I will give the king some credit in the courtroom scene is
I
that
was going to
he's
mention him. He was,
yeah.
if anybody was a favorite character, it was him. Even though I didn't know what he was saying, there was something about the king that I really liked.
I don't to be honest, I didn't like him still, but I could tell that he was trying to act.
I think it was probably the fact that he was the most leaning into being a goofy guy.
Yeah,
He felt like he fit most at home in Wonderland, whereas the rest of them were a bit blank.
it still felt very amateur to me, but it did feel more like he was owning, owning being an actor and acting as the King of Hearts.
Uh-huh.
More of an attempt, I guess. I'm not saying the others aren't attempting, because part of me does wonder if like plot directed them to act this way. But yeah, I will say the King is probably the only one whose acting is actually like decent,
Yeah.
in my opinion, facially, not on line delivery. But anyway, I don't have anything else to say about the Mad Tea Party. And to be honest, I don't have much to say about the parade either.
Well, I mean, the things that I have to say about the scenes with the cards are more just questions because, like, they're doing the weird parade over the hills or whatever, and it looked
Uh,
like there were tiny, limbless statues in the hills. I was like, what's up with that? I'm sure you probably don't even know because I don't even know if that's what I was seeing, but it kind of looked like there were tiny, limbless statues.
was there? I didn't know it. To be honest, I zone out when I watch this one during this part, especially during the parade because it's just like people walking. Oh, there it is. Okay, I see the torso and butt thing going on there. I think I did notice that when I was watching it, and I think my brain just dismissed it as artistic nonsense.
Well, when it was like here, I thought maybe they were big, but then when they walk and they pass behind the statue, I was like, wait a minute, is that thing supposed to be tiny? It's like I did not know what that was supposed to be about.
Hmm. I don't know if it was purposely playing on like illusion of size, but personally for me, I always thought it looked tiny.
I actually just now watching it again, I think that the rabbit talked about it because I heard him say estatua, which is Spanish
Oh,
for statue.
yeah.
So it must have been there for a reason.
Hmm.
I don't know what reason, but they pointed it out. So,
I think someone probably had a statue.
hey, I've got this old statue, little mini statue. Let's just stick it in here. It's
Yeah,
weird.
it'll be very artistic. Sounds good. But I don't know, maybe there's a deeper meaning. Again, I am missing, we're missing part of the context, or whether there is or not context.
Well, the next scene, I was wondering about context or deeper meaning as well.
Oh, the rose bush.
I mean, there's a rose bush in Alice in Wonderland. I figured they were just doing that scene, although it did look kind of dead.
So, the interesting thing about the rose bush, Irene wrote this, and I couldn't tell at all when I was watching this. It's only when I was reading what she wrote, which was the rose bush has snails on it.
Okay, I didn't get that at all, but
Yeah, which
I'm
she
watching a fuzzy
says,
version, so
yeah. Well, she was also watching the fuzzy version, I think, because this article's a couple of years old now. What she says is, but suddenly the scene is a vast meadow with several little cart soldiers standing next to the most stunted bush in the river plate, and they admit that it should be a rose bush full of roses, but instead they have put snails on some dead branches, hoping they will look good, and what is undoubtedly the best joke in the film. And I was like, all right, this is definitely a part where the it's soaring over my head because I'm like, what's the joke?
maybe a visual joke, like thinking a snail looks like a rose and that's funny.
Does it?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like, I feel like it's probably a language joke, but I don't know.
Oh, it could be. I don't know.
Yeah, snail in Spanish. Caracol. Okay. Isn't rose like Rosa
Rosa.
or something?
So it doesn't sound at all like that. So it's not a
Even
language joke.
white is Blanca or Blanco. Red is Rojo?
Roja.
Roja. Rojo. Depending on feminine or masculine. I don't get it. No idea what the joke's supposed to be. Over my head. But I find it interesting that it's apparently the best joke in the film.
Okay. I'll take her word for it. She's the expert.
Yeah. I don't know if she means also like the best joke that they personally done in the film, or if it is better than the Carol dialogue they put in. I don't know. Probably the best that they came up with themselves. So that's the thing. And then we move on to a very interesting thing. So we have the croquet game and the beach, which is definitely a very, very different setting.
Yes. That was what I was going to ask you, like if there was supposed to be some hidden meaning, because I am fairly certain that for croquet balls they were using mannequin heads. I was like,
See, that's the, yeah,
is this a
they
joke about the
were.
queen beheading people, or is this literally mannequin heads?
This is where I'm kind of like wondering if this is like a leftover from when it was going to be more political.
Yeah, because I was wondering that now, because like I didn't get that when I was watching. I was like, okay, mannequin heads, but then you started talking about this originally being a political thing, and I was like, okay, is there a meaning to these mannequin heads?
If there is, it's completely obviously, like gone.
Yeah.
Or again, maybe if I knew the history of this, maybe I would be able to understand. But considering that they were able to screen this film in its final version, and it looks like without much incident, then it probably, whatever it was, it flew over other people's heads too. So,
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, I'm not sure what's up with the mannequin heads. I don't know, maybe someone's just like, I have a bunch of mannequin heads. That'd be kind of funny. And he's like, I'm an artist. Let's do it. I will also say the beach itself is an interesting choice for a setting. And I'm sure part of it was, they'd already filmed so much in like a forest,
Hmm.
it is good that they wanted to break it up.
I mean, it works sort of narratively because the next scene like took place on a beach in the book.
Yeah,
So I guess they just kind of tied it together that way.
to be honest, I do kind of wonder if that is somebody reading the book and thinking the mock turtle and the griffin happens right after the croquet match, not realizing there's kind of a transition between like the croquet grounds to the beach.
Uh-huh.
Um, or maybe they just think it makes it more ridiculous being on the beach, and it leads well to the next scene. I don't know,
Yeah.
but it's an okay choice. I appreciated the change of scenery.
Yeah. I like that it made it unique.
Yeah.
Like for everything that was strange and maybe kind of boring, I liked how unique a lot of the choices were.
Mm. That's definitely a compliment you could give this Alice is that it's unique.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to say about the griffin and mock turtle besides that the mock turtle looked more like a bug to me.
That's what I wrote.
Yeah, it looks like
Well,
it has an antennae.
well, first the griffin, I was like, this looks more like one of the flying monkeys from the Wizard of Oz, but like if you bought it on Wish.
Oh no.
The Timu griffin. It was a bit janky. He did not look like a griffin at all.
Yeah,
And then the mock turtle, as I wrote and you saw, it looks like a bug. It has no arms, but it's inside of a turtle shell, but it has antenna. It has a green face. Like, whatever the mock turtle was, it was not what a mock turtle is supposed to be.
yeah. I'm
It's
not
just
sure that's
bizarre.
like a translation thing.
I don't
Um,
know. I don't know. Did it show up later? Because during the courtroom scene, I was like, is that the mock turtle again? But it has arms now and no shell? I was very confused. Like there was a lot of stuff happening in the courtroom scene that I
I
didn't know what I was looking at.
I don't know. To be honest, I feel like I said that a lot this, but the courtroom was the hardest for me to be engaged back in. Every single time I've watched this, the courtroom is where I'm kind of like, ooh, it's weird because you would think that I would be re-engaged because it's a different setting. It's the blank nothingness again, which I do think would have, if the whole Alice had been like that, I actually think that would have been really interesting.
Hmm.
But it's blank nothingness again. There's some weird zodiac stuff on the floor, and you think I'd be like, what's that? Puzzling over that the whole time. You think I would be engaged with the king because he's actually trying to act. But instead, I just dissociate the hardest during this point because I've gone through so much of the film trying to pay attention. And then it's like my paying attention brain conks out. And it's like, what am I watching? That's all I think during the courtroom scene. What am I watching? And I think because it's so long, I also
Yeah.
struggle, which is weird because I've been complaining that the scenes are too short, but I feel like maybe it's a little too late for me when I'm watching compared to the rest of the movie. You know, kind of like, oh, I could change. It's like it's too late. I'm done. You know, like you've lost my attention. And I guess that's what this courtroom scene is for me. It's like I can't. It's hard for me to buy what you're trying to sell now.
I think if I was watching this just as a movie, I would have been extremely bored. But because I was watching it purposely trying to make notes, I was like trying to pay attention so much harder than I would normally. And I was really trying to pick out like how much was from the book. Like I can't tell for sure, but I could tell that some of the dialogue was because
I'm pretty
I could
sure I
pick
like
out
all of it.
I could pick out the important, unimportant lines.
Yeah.
I could pick out, well, obviously, because visually you can tell that the cook brought her pepper, and
Mm.
then the hatter bites his teacup. So I could tell they were trying for some accuracy. I couldn't tell how accurate it was being. So I was paying attention in that way, but it was long. And if I hadn't been taking notes, I probably would have been disassociating as well.
I think my next thing I should try to do regarding this film is just take a break from it, and next time I watch it, only watch the courtroom scene just to like engage with it fairly. Because I don't know, my brain just doesn't like this scene when I get to it, when I try to watch the whole thing together. It's kind of like when you're stuck in a theater seat watching a play, right? And you're like, I'm restless. I gotta go. I'm done. But the other part of you is like, but you bought the ticket. You need to sit here and watch the whole thing and get your money's worth. And but your body's like, no. That I don't know. That's what it feels like. And then I think it ends kind of oddly as well.
Yeah, everybody just starts disappearing around her until she's alone, and then she wakes up back at the marsh, and then she has a bunch of flashbacks, which I guess was supposed to be a music video. I don't know.
Yeah. honestly, while watching the music video, I was kind of like, it almost kind of feels like this is all an excuse to get footage to make a music video.
I mean, I didn't think of it as a music video when I was watching it, but now that you say music video, I was like, yeah, kinda it was.
Yeah,
Because they play the theme song again, and then it's just all the quote unquote best parts.
yeah. Which actually, I think in the context of the time, music videos were pretty like brand spanking new. When was the
I
first?
guess so.
When was the first music video? What? No, that's not what I'm talking about. 1894.
That's what I
No,
got when I searched as well. I think
no,
they're
n-
stretching the
that is
definition
a
of music
huge
video.
stretch. Yeah, that is not a modern day idea of a music video. I will accept it was a prototype. I don't a predecessor. That's like calling a zoetrope like the first cartoon. Okay, they're musical shorts. Yeah, I will give them that.
I'm seeing mentions of people talking about the first music videos as we think of them were produced by the Beatles in 1965,
Okay, yeah.
which sounds about right.
Yeah, I do feel like 1976 was still pretty early for music video. Because I was actually the other a few months ago, what was it called? There was like a Mickey Mouse disco short that I finally watched because I was curious because I saw a poster for it, but nobody talks about it. And I watched it. It was just a music video like on the level of like anime music videos from YouTube in the early 2000s. And I was like, "Oh, this is boring." But then I like was like, "Wait a second. This is in the 70s." Like this would have actually been like really unusual for the time to have a music video of a cartoon character edited like and you know simple editing. It's like, "Oh, this wouldn't have been really normal though." But so again, going back to the context of that, I'm like, a music video at the end probably would have been really cool for this Alice and the audience. To me, it feels out of place, but I acknowledge that's with the perception of it doesn't really make sense to me to end in a recap music video.
Yeah.
If anything, it feels like, to me, nowadays, it almost feels kind of lazy. Um,
I was just thinking it feels like they could have had something more important fill that time.
yes. However, I'm trying to step back into the context of the audience that would have watched this in 1976. And that probably was pretty cool for them, especially having a song written especially for the movie over it. So good for them, I guess. It's not really a music video that stands out to me personally,
Hmm.
but cool. I get.
I mean, as far as the songs, that to me was like I preferred the beginning. Like I liked the illustrations along with the music because it felt more thematically appropriate. This just felt like a weird clip show.
Yeah, it does feel more like a clip show than a really curated music video. Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, and then it doesn't really have credits, does it? It just kind of ends.
Yeah, it says Finn at the end of the song.
Yeah, though part of that is they had all the credits at the beginning. Oh my gosh, the credits at the beginning were long.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, it's just like I'm already spacing out.
I don't think I was spacing out because I did like the music. So I was
Mm.
kind of just watching the visuals.
I don't know. I don't really care for the credits. I would like them a bit more if they weren't as long. But I also kind of get that they put all the credits at the opening, so it had to be all of them. I think it actually would have been better at the end, but I don't. Maybe this was like common for Argentinian films at the time to have them all at the opening.
I think it was common for films in general.
Yeah, well, I know for like older American films that what used to be the norm.
Hmm.
But I feel like by the 70s, we had transitioned to putting most of our credits at the end.
I think the 70s was when the transition started happening because you can kind of
Yeah.
track it through Disney. When did the first Disney animated film do that? Because that would give you a good idea. I was right. Fox and the Hound, 1981.
Okay. Yeah, I guess you're right.
I was thinking, for some reason, I was thinking Fox and the Hound was 70s, but Fox and the Hound was the one I had in my head as the first one. Yeah, that was 81. So it's still, credits were still happening at the beginning at that time. So
Weirdly, it doesn't seem like anybody has like traced it. to a particular film starting it, just more of a pattern. But this says Disney might have been slow on the uptake, because I'm seeing that it started in the late 60s and early 70s.
Yeah, I'm seeing mentions of like there was a transition starting to happen towards the end of the 60s and beginning of 70s.
So two of the first major films to contain extensive closing credits but almost no opening credits were the blockbusters Around the World in 80 Days, 1956, and West Side Story, 1961.
Hmm.
However, I'm sure in Argentina, which doesn't look like it was exactly on the pulse with American films yet,
Yeah.
that this was quite normal for Argentinian films at the time. If anything, having a music video at the end was probably more modern than they were used to.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it feels that having a custom song at the end feels a lot like a modern movie experience. The only weird part was that it had no credits, but it wasn't meant to have credits. That wasn't the norm. How do you feel finally seeing this, Alice?
I'm glad I finally watched it. I kind of doubt I'll ever watch it again, but I'm glad I watched it.
I will be honest, I've actually watched the beginning a few times.
Well, that's true. Like if
Yeah.
I might watch it again, just the beginning in particular. Because I was kind of thinking as I was watching this, because like back at the beginning of Wonderland Wednesday, I would sometimes like cut together like sort of music video type things.
Mm,
And I was thinking recently it would be kind of fun to do that again. And I kind of have started doing that with my end credits. Like at first I was using the old music videos that I had made to make end credits
yeah.
out of, but I kind of want to cut some new ones at some point if I have time. I don't have a ton of time, but I was watching this in particular. I was thinking there was a lot of visuals in this movie in particular that would make for good end credits.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I might watch it again just to pick out some visuals. But if I do that, I will probably stop and just watch the beginning because I do really like the beginning.
Yeah, I really like the beginning, and then I just when it gets to like the caucus race part, I stop it and I go, "Well, that was a good film." And I just imagine, like a psychedelic Alice following the lines of
Yeah,
that I really wish they had done.
yeah,
But, it's okay.
yeah. It's fine. It could be better. The beginning was great. Some of it was boring, but it was interesting and I'm glad I watched it.
I have definitely seen much worse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's mid-tier. It's low mid, but it's still technically mid-tier.
I mean, with some of them, that's a low bar.
Yeah, I know.
There's some really bad ones out there.
Yeah. It might even be generous and say it's upper low mid-tier because I really do like the opening.
That does kind of give it an edge. Like
Yeah.
even other ones that for the most part are kind of on par with this don't have anything as good as the opening in it. Because the
Yeah.
opening is good.
And I'm gonna circle back around to this Alice disappoints me so much I really do like the opening, and I have watched it quite a few times
Yeah.
just on its own. Really wish go back in time and just be like, just do it. Go away. Right. So that said, like, I don't know, maybe they just couldn't think of anything. But oh well.
Yeah.
And I would love going off also Mall Alice. I would love if someone did a dead Mall Alice. Do it while we still have malls that are dead to do it in. Someone do it. Not me. I don't have any talent. My only talent is thinking of good idea concepts for Alice. Not much you could do with that talent. Anyway, and that's all I got.
That would be interesting. The mall that I grew up going to when I was a kid is gone. They bulldozed it years ago.
Yeah, it's like you gotta do it now. You gotta get this weird mall. It'd be nuts if you just had an Alice go to like because so many weird malls had like weird architectural features.
Yeah.
Like my boyfriend and I were watching like Are You Afraid of the Dark recently, and there was this weird mall feature where it had a fountain in the floor, but there was like no edge to it. It's just like steps. And I was like, well, that looks like a nightmare.
Yeah. There was a fountain in the mall that I grew up going to, but it had an edge to it. Because I remember looking over the edge and looking down to see all the money that people threw in there, wishing I could get the money out.
Most malls have an edge because you don't want people to slip, and most parents don't want their kids to just run into a fountain
Yeah.
So it stood out. But I'm like, because the reason why I feel like this Alice would be so clever, because so many models of like the 80s and 90s did really weird architectural things. If you scouted locations and found like really like crazy stuff in each location, you could think of like different scenes to do in these locations. Like for instance, that fountain, Pool of Tears. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, there's different things you could do. So I'm like, that's why I think that would be a good Alice. And seeing the very, very beginning of this one where she's in that shopping center with the elevator really like reminds me that this would be a good concept for an Alice and someone should do it.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah. Oh, I guess we could talk about whether we recommend it. I only really recommend this if you're into Alice being adapted
Yes.
and you don't mind it being in a foreign language with no subtitles. But that's the only reason why I would recommend this. I would recommend the beginning specifically if you'd like to see like Alice adapted in like in an interesting visual way.
Uh-huh.
But other than that, it just drops off after that, so you don't have to watch the whole thing. That's the only reasons I would recommend this.
Yeah, I feel pretty much the same. I don't recommend this to a general audience because
No.
they're gonna be bored. I found it interesting just because I think it's interesting to watch different versions of things.
Yeah, I
So
wouldn't even recommend this to a casual Alice fan, to be honest.
I would recommend the beginning to a casual Alice fan. But
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you could stop after she's down and in the woods.
Honestly, if I ever did find a better copy of this, I probably would just like put the very opening on YouTube, and then people comment, "Where's the rest of it?" And I'm just like, "You don't want to see it." This is the best part. If anything, you can imagine a better one from here. But yeah, I do recommend checking out the opening.
Yeah.
You don't have to watch the whole thing though.
I actually, if there was a better copy released, I probably would watch the whole thing again just to see if I could get a better look at some of the stuff that I didn't really know what was going on. Because I am interested to see if I could figure out what those creatures were that were in the Pool of Tears. Because they're just so weird. I want a better look at them because they were all just kind of blurry and I didn't know what I was looking at.
I really don't know if, like high quality 4K or HD would make this better for me.
Well, I don't think it would be a better movie. I just think it would be a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice in the sense of just because the copy we currently have is really not that great. I appreciate that we have it, don't get me wrong, but there is like the film transfer itself does have a flicker to it, which is quite distracting.
Hmm.
So I would really like to see the restored version and to have it, and I probably would give it another watch just to be like, but to be honest, part of that watch would be out of obligation to be like, now I've seen it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
me too.
But maybe there are some details that I could see that I wouldn't have noticed before. I'm gonna make a note to myself when if I ever do get to see it, I'm gonna take breaks with it and try to, because I think part of the reason why this one's such a drag for me is because it goes on. But if I cut it in the middle, maybe that will help.
It might.
Yeah. That's a recommendation. If you do want to try this, Alice, consider taking a break during it. If you start to feel yourself get bored, take a break. You don't have to
Yeah.
watch it in one go. I did because I'm insane. I should have taken a break. Oh well.
I feel like we've said, oh well, a lot
Oh
about this
well.
movie.
Oh well.
Well, on that note, I think we can probably call this one good.
Yeah, I think we've exhausted how much we could talk about it in English anyway,
Yeah,
with minimal research.
I'm sure we'll be back soon with something else, hopefully something a little bit more interesting.
Oh yeah.
Until the next one, do you want to let people know where they can find you if they'd like more from you?
Sure. I'm Phantomwise on YouTube. I'm also Love Gets of a Fairy Tale on YouTube for my non-Alice things. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Well, we will see you next time.
See you real soon.
Thanks for listening to Every Version Ever. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My link tree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.
Come along and pass through the looking glass into Wonderland.